So yeah, just going to just pop the chat down. Yeah, so thanks so much for joining both Ruby and I today on this webinar. Now, it's going to be in two parts. So it will start with me aiming to show you what is possible in Glean in as little time as possible. And this will include a couple of the new updates that we've got as well. And then I'm going to pass over to Ruby so she can show you how she can integrate the Glean notes with Inspiration. And she'll do this by converting them into a lovely mind map to continue working on. And no doubt she's got lots of, well, I'm assuming you've got some new updates as well to show. Now, my section is scheduled for about 25 minutes, with most of that being a demonstration of Glean itself rather than slides. But if you do have any questions for myself or Ruby, just pop them down in the chat window or the Q&A pane, and we will answer them once we've both presented. So we are recording this session. So once the recording has been processed and downloaded and captioned, which will probably take us into next week, we will share it with you, and you'll also get CPD certificates as well. So that will again come probably on the Monday by the time we get a chance to do that. Okay, now first of all, for those of you who have never seen or heard of Glean before, you might be wondering what it does. And usually when I ask people who know what it does, I invariably get the same answer. And that is that it is there to help create a set of notes from a lecture, a seminar, or a meeting, or basically wherever you need to take notes from. And this could be both in person and remotely. And that is technically correct. However, what we're actually trying to do is to help people learn and understand information so they can study successfully. And they're two different things, because just having a set of notes doesn't mean you've learned anything, but it's going through that note-taking process that helps you learn. And I do believe there's a key distinction between the two. So Glean does not take notes for you, but what it does do is facilitate a note-taking process, because that is incredibly important. And that's what we're trying to help people with here at Glean. And as this great quote says, learning is necessarily effortful. It requires cognitive engagement, friction, and practice. Anyway, I am going to close my slides and just go straight onto the demo side of it now. If I can get out of my slides, there we go. I'm going to close them down completely. Okay, now, although we can use Glean on all laptops and desktops and mobile devices, I'm actually only going to be showing you the web version today, which is the version you use on your laptops or your desktops. But I will be showing you the process from start to finish, so being sat in your lectures or your meetings, adding your slides and your notes and your labels. And then after that, I'm going to move on to what you would do after you finish recording, where I'll look at the playback and the transcription options and how you can navigate your events, edit your notes. You can utilize our AI outlines and quiz me tools as well, and export your notes. Okay, so here I am in my Glean homepage. Oh, and incidentally, I will be showing you a couple of new features as well, so it's not going to be all old stuff. Okay, here is my Glean homepage, and it's got all of my previously recorded events. Now, I am online at the moment, but if I was to lose my internet connection, it would look exactly the same and carry on working. So the students don't need to worry about losing any important information or losing any of their events. Now, I'm on a Mac here, and this would look exactly the same if you're on a Windows or a Chromebook device or even a Linux machine. Okay, so if I was about to attend a lecture or meeting, what would I do? Well, first of all, I would go up here and create a new event. And it's always best to give a name to your event. So I'm going to call this Study Effectively, because I'm going to pretend I'm going to be learning all about studying in this new lecture that I'm about to go to. Now, one feature that is really loved is the ability to be able to align your notes with your slides. So I'm going to bring some of those in too. Going to bring it in my Study Effectively slides and bring them in. Now, of course, the event is now about to start, so I need to decide what I want to record. Now, incidentally, if you do have a student or a client who has a pre-recorded lecture or a meeting on their laptop, you can go and import recordings as well, and you just click this little import audio button. But today I'm doing the talking. I'm in the same room as my laptop, so I will be going up here to click the record button, and I will click the microphone option. If, however, you were wanting to record something online, then you would choose one of the remote recording options, one of these two down here. Okay, so I'm just going to click my microphone. Now, of course, Glean is now starting to record my voice, and you can see it is visualizing my voice on the screen as these blocks of speech. And there's gaps, of course, as well, whenever there is a pause. So it's sort of based around phrasing, and this makes the audio really easy to navigate, and it means that you can then link text notes or labels to key moments that you can then review at your own pace after the event. Now, note that there are two versions of Glean. So you've got Glean Notes and you've got Glean Notes plus captions. So if your student has the version with captions, they can turn it on. You'll see this little CC button at the top here, and they can just click that on. And then their captions will appear at the bottom here, just above the notes input box. Now, note that you can also change the language of your captions as well, if you want to. Now, it's also worth mentioning that within the DSA in the UK, the captioned version is only available for a subset of students, and that tends to be those with hearing impairment. So it's not going to be available for everybody, but other funding bodies such as Access to Work and those in Scotland don't have such restrictions. Okay, so I'm just going to turn that off for now. Now, you can see at the moment, I'm just recording the audio, but the idea isn't just to record the audio, because if that is all you do, not only do you run the risk of zoning out by not being actively engaged, but you're also just going to end up with a huge long audio file to go and hunt through afterwards. And most people really don't want to go back and listen back to every single moment. You know, they want to go back to the things that were important or the things they didn't understand. So what we do with Glean is to take notes live in the moment, but we do this in a very, very quick light touch way using a couple of tools that we've got. So let's say I hear a key point, I can go and type in key point and press enter. And because these notes are time-stamped, you can keep your notes really, really simple, because you know that you'll be able to click on this section later on and listen back to that relevant part of the audio. And you can see there's a little bullet point to the left of your note, which is also replicated in your audio pane. Now, if you're somebody who struggles with writing anything down sort of live in the moment, then you can use one of our headings. So we've got heading, important and review. So for example, I can click and hold the important label. An important label appears then in my notes, and you can also see the icon in my audio. Same with review, click and hold. If I wanted to, I could combine text with labels as well. So maybe at this point, the speaker's talking about raising grades. So I'm just going to type that in. I'm going to add that as a review label and send that in. And there it is. Now I can also add headings as well. So this would be quite nice if I want to sort of break my audio up in all my notes into sections. I find this tool particularly useful doing my work meetings, and I use it sort of every time a new agenda point is mentioned. But I'm just going to pretend that we're now talking about a new topic and pop it in, and you can see we've got like a heading type font in there, but we've also broken up our audio so it looks a bit like paragraphs. So you can see visually it's now onto a new section. Now I can also keep my slides aligned with my audio as well. So if the speaker has moved on to the next slide, I can click post next slide, and you can see in it comes. And then also, let's say the speaker's telling me to go and read a book or maybe write an essay. We can use our task tool here. I'll just put essay due. You might need to remember to pop the E in there as well. And I can give this a due date. I'll put this for the 30th. Haven't got very long to do that one. And then I can send that across. And this is an interactive task as well, so I can tick that off once it's finished. Now, if you are somebody who would find it really useful to jot equations down frequently or do drawings, we do have our scribble tool. This actually got launched a few weeks ago now, but it's still sort of relatively new. And it's a very simple tool and a particularly useful tool for those on STEM type subjects. So you can see when you open it, you've got a whiteboard with all the tools that you would expect a scribble tool to have. Now, obviously, I'm going to be using my mouse on my laptop, so this will be a little bit trickier than using your finger or a stylus on the mobile version, which I think is probably the best way to use the scribble tool, to be honest, or even on a touchscreen computer, that would be fab. But I'm going to use my mouse, and you should be able to sort of get the idea of it. So very quickly, I'm going to add an equation in here. Just going to put MC, oh, I'm just going to undo that because that wasn't very good. MC It's usually better than that. MC equals, I'm just going to start again. It is usually a lot better than that. It's because I can hear the doorbell has just gone downstairs. And so I'm sort of thinking, I wonder who that is. Anyway, so you can see, with my mouse, I can add the odd equation. I can go in here and I can add shapes around things like that. I can add arrows across, but obviously it'd be a lot easier if you've got a stylus. Or what I really like actually is the fact that you can move these scribbles around. So if you have got a really long formula to write in here, you could do that, or you could even think, actually, I'm going to change the color of my pen, make it thicker, and I just want to do a little face or a flower or something. Sometimes people do find being able to actually draw little doodles during a section that they're listening to can sort of help them sort of bring back that information later on when they're listening back to it. There is the option to have grids in here as well. So if you wanted to do a particularly precise graph, you can, and we've got a snap alignment there as well. We've also got the option to highlight sections as well. You can change the color of the highlighting, of course, if you want to. So as you would expect, lots of things that you can do with your scribble. And then when you're finished, you can just send that off to your notes and it appears into here. Now, this is also time-stamped. So of course, this is going to be linked to the relevant part of the audio, basically the part when you started to create that scribble. Okay, so you can see how you can sort of add very simple notes and labels as you go along. And then when the event is finished, you can click the stop button. And then you can choose to actually click on this transcript button, and then you can convert everything that was being recorded into text. Now, if I click this transcribe audio button, you do have the option of different languages there as well. It's not a translation tool, but if I had been speaking in Welsh, I could transcribe this in Welsh. But of course, I'm speaking in English, so I shall be transcribing in English. Now, note that everything I did prior to this transcription service, I didn't need to be online for. But for the actual transcription itself, you do need an active internet connection. But what is quite nice is that once it's finished, or once the transcription is finished and processed, everything is saved online. So you can go back and you can utilize that transcript later on, even if you can't get online again. And also what is great is that everything I just did so far, except for the captioning, I can now also do on my mobile devices. Our dev team has been working really hard in the background just to make sure there's a really good parity between the two platforms. I don't have time to jump onto the mobile at the moment, but basically you can do everything that I just did, except for the captioning. Okay, now of course, Glean isn't just about recording, it's also what you do with your notes afterwards. So very quickly, starting with the audio view, you can, of course, just click the play button and play everything back. Microphone. Now, of course, Glean is now starting to record my voice. And you can see we've also got some sort of audio cleanup tools, which you can toggle on and off, which will help with the clarity of that audio. And you can also slow down or speed up the audio as well from here, which is particularly useful for ADHD students who find it beneficial to listen back to information at least 1.25 speed, because that helps them keep their focus. So those are nice little tools that you can use in there. It works the same in the transcript, but as an added bonus, when you are listening back in the transcript view, you can read as well at the same time, and you also get word and sentence highlighting. So I'll just show you that. It is visualizing my voice on the screen as these blocks of speech. Now, what's really quite handy though is if you are somebody with optical sensitivities who like to read in a particular colour background, you can now change your theme by clicking on the bar at the top here. So for example, if I wanted to listen back in green, I'm just going to play it back now, so you can see it will actually play it back in green as well. And there's gaps, of course, as well whenever there is a pause. That's quite handy. I like my lilac, so I'm going to go back to lilac for now. Okay, so I've just been showing you how you can play back from the start, but that's not really the best way to use Glean, because most people aren't going to want to listen back to an entire recording again. The whole point about Glean is that you'll be able to navigate to the parts of audio that you had marked as important or that you made annotations against, and that of course will make the listening back process a lot easier. And to help me demonstrate that, I'm just going to jump onto a demo event because I want to show you an example of what an event might look like if I had attended an hour-long lecture or meeting, just something with a little bit more detailing in here. So here we are, we've got all of my slides in here. I've got all of my notes and my labels and my audio. So I don't need to worry that I've missed anything. I've got everything I need to make a really nice comprehensive set of notes. And as an added bonus, by clicking on the transcript text button, I also have all of my transcripts. So as before, I can toggle between those two viewing options. But again, starting with the audio view, when I'm listening back, I sort of see my notes outline as a bit of a to-do list because I can navigate through here, all of my notes and labels, and it takes me directly to the part of the audio that I want to listen back to. So for example, if I want to listen back to this part here, I can just press play.
We're going to take a look at effective notes, a great process to use for note-taking, and how these notes can help you to get more from the information around you.
So you can see I listen back to that and I can start to type my notes up in more detail. As you know, we can also play back in the transcript view, and both the audio view and the transcript view are also linked to your notes and annotations. So you can see as I click through my notes and annotations, it also takes me to the relevant parts of my transcript. So if I want to listen back to this part here and write a note, I'm just going to press the play button again.
Retrieval practice is the process of actively recalling information from memory. So when we're talking about retrieval practice, there are a few methods.
And you can see I just started typing my notes in there manually. However, you might think, rather than write that out, I would actually quite like to grab this section from my transcript and just pop it straight into my notes. And I can do that just by posting it on. Now, this is really handy because then once it's in here, it's completely editable and I can change bits, I can add bits, I can take bits out. So I can sort of reword it and make it my own. So that's really handy, because the great thing about having the transcript is that you can cherry pick those bits that you think will be useful, and then you can basically leave everything else. However, one of the other great things about having the transcript is that it's searchable. So if you have gone and recorded a class or a meeting, and let's say for whatever reason you got distracted or you weren't listening for a period of time, or maybe you didn't identify something as important, sort of live in the moment, you can come back and search for it. So for example, if I wanted to find a section that was all about passive studying, but I hadn't written a note in here about passive studying, so I didn't know where to look, what I can now do is click on the sort of generic search and find tool on my keyboard, which is basically Command and F on a Mac or Control and F on a PC. And I'm just going to pop in passive studying. And you can see it takes me directly to that part of my transcript, so I can then go and review it. And at this point, I can just go and play it back from here.
Passive studying, activities like rereading or highlighting text, often feels more comfortable.
Or I might think, actually, I haven't got time to actually listen back to that at the moment, but I know I need to do that later. So I can go and add a view label and just say, listen back, passive studying. I can never type very fast when I'm trying to talk at the same time. There you go, and it pops it directly into your notes in the relevant part. Now, moving on though, it could be that you don't actually know what to look for. It might be that you're in a scenario where you've recorded, but for whatever reason, you haven't taken any notes, you haven't done any annotations, you might not even have any slides there. So you've literally gone into your event, whatever it is, and you've just clicked that record button and you've not really been able to do much else. And at this point, you actually can't remember what you need to look for. So you need a little bit of additional support. Well, this is where the new AI outline function will come in really handy. Now, it's taken us a while to actually get us to this stage where we're happy and ready to share what we, share with you what we produce, but we are really happy with what we've done, because we think that AI absolutely has the power to enhance learning, but it really must be done in a considered way. So what we've done, we've got this outline tab here, and I can now click this generate outline button. and it's now going to analyze the recording and then break it down into sections for you with headings and a brief summary. So it's going to tell you, for example, what was talked about in here, what was talked about in here. So maybe, let's say I'm intrigued about listening to everything that they were saying about AI in learning. So I'm going to click on that section. And because this operates a bit like an interactive contents page, when I click the play button, it's going to take me directly to that part of my audio.
Now to the question of AI in learning and whether you should be using it when you study.
So really, really handy. Obviously, the onus is still on you to play it back and write things up in your own words and do the research. But that is really an essential part of the learning process. So very, very necessary. But what this will do is it will help people to navigate all of that content that they've captured just that little bit easier and to suggest topics that they might want to go and research further. Now, to continue, though, moving back to the section about active recall, if I can find it, I think it's up here somewhere. There we go. Active recall or retrieval practice. Now, maybe I'd like some more information about this. Now, we've got this plus button up here, and this allows us to be much more concise with our notes, because Glean doesn't always just have to be about text and slides. We can continue to add different elements directly to this section. So let's say I was a visual learner, and I'd actually like to get an image related to active recall. So if I click the plus button, I can then click our little search tool here. Obviously, I can import images if I want to, but I'm going to search through Bing and I'm going to find some images. It even tells you the source if I want it, but I'm just going to click on that image and it brings it in. Oh, didn't mean to do that. Just close that down. There we go. That's what happens when you click on it, just so you know. Now, also what's quite useful is I can get a definition of what active recall is by using our definition tool. Now, our definition tool is a very useful function because it's going to allow you to very quickly get meanings of words and phrases and concepts very quickly into your notes, which can then sort of prompt some further research along the line. So again, click the plus button, but this time I'm going to click the definition tool. I'm going to pop active recall in there, press enter. And you can see it pops in a definition along with an article, with a hyperlink to the article itself. So you can basically see how you can start to flesh your notes out in more detail with information from other sources. And by the time you've been through this whole entire process with all of your notes and your annotations, what you will have done is converted your simple audio recording into a set of notes that looks a little bit like this one here. So this is an example with all of my notes and images and definitions. Now, obviously, this is something that I might want to get out of Glean, but as I touched on active recall and retrieval practice a few minutes ago and the benefits of sort of recalling information from memory, maybe I want to test myself first. Well, what we have done to sort of help facilitate that is to build a tool that we call QuizMe. Now you can see you can click on this scholar's hat up the top here. And this opens QuizMe, our AI study buddy, and then I can click to start the quiz. And what's going to happen is it's going to look through your transcript, analyze it, and then start to ask you some intelligent multiple choice questions with plausible answers and plausible wrong answers and also some of the correct answers. And then you can just go through and answer them. Now, I'm not going to read the questions. I'm just going to quickly just tap and hope that I get some right and some wrong, because I want you to see what it looks like at the end. Okay, that's it. So now I can go and show my results. And what I really like about this is you can see how well you did. So you can see all the answers that you got correct, but more importantly, you can see all the ones that you actually got incorrect. And I think that's really key, because the main benefit of this tool is to identify gaps in your knowledge, because when you identify what you don't know, you can then focus your revision time afterwards on relearning that information. So then you'd go back in and sort of research that a bit more. And of course, I can retake this quiz and I can also generate a brand new quiz as well. But I'm just going to return to the event, because once I'm happy that I've learned everything that I need to know, I can then click on this reading view and to get my notes out of Glean. But it also opens up this nice format that's really nice to work with all of your slides and your notes and your headings. And if I wanted to, I could print it off but I'm just going to copy it now because I'm going to pop it into this document here, but you can pop it into Google Doc, Microsoft Word, OneNote, even a nursing journal. You're really not restricted to a particular file type. I'm going to pop it in, and in it comes, and you can see I've got a really nice interactive index on the left-hand side as well, which is created by anytime you add a slide or a heading in Glean. Okay, now this is where I am going to hand over to Ruby, so she can continue on from here, because she's going to introduce Inspiration and then how she can convert this exported Glean notes, or these exported Glean notes, into a really nice Inspiration document. And this, of course, is going to be incredibly useful for those who find it beneficial to continue to work on their projects from Glean in a mind map format. Okay, over to you, Ruby.
Thank you, Helena. I think you did really well, by the way, with that scribble tool. It reminded me of when you get a delivery and you have to do your signature.
Yeah.
Looks awful.
I don't normally do it that
really
badly.
cool. Yeah. Fantastic. Cool. I'm going to start sharing my screen then, if that's okay.
I just stop share.
Thank you. Oh, what have I done? Cool. Hopefully you can see my slides. I'm going to do a couple slides, not many, and then just jump straight into the demo. I'm sure lots of you are familiar with Inspiration already, but it's always nice to do a bit of an introduction to anyone who needs a bit of a refresh or isn't familiar with it yet. And then, as Helena said, I'll jump into a demonstration of how you can take those Glean notes and create a Inspiration diagram from them, and how that can really help our users. So if you are not familiar with Inspiration, it is a visual thinking tool for creating all sorts of mind maps, diagrams, concept maps, outlines, presentations, all sorts of stuff you can do with it. And so therefore it's very beneficial for anyone who is really any nonlinear thinkers, creative thinkers, but also anyone with neurodifference or cognitive challenges as well. And we have tons of case studies on our website where you can really see the kind of the breadth of uses and users that Inspiration can be beneficial for. So as I said, we're going to show you how you can take those Glean notes and how you can take them into an Inspiration diagram similar to the one here. So Inspiration can help support the idea generation. So it's all about getting those ideas down onto the screen, not worrying about where they link up or if they're correct just yet, but just getting them down onto the screen nice and quickly before you have to move on to something else or before you forget them. And then as a second step, organizing those ideas. So we can really break down the writing, the thinking, whatever project you're sort of doing, we can break down that process into these different steps and make it a lot more manageable. We can start organizing those ideas by linking them up, and I'll show you how to do this within Inspiration. And this means it's easier and better for us to understand those concepts because we can start seeing the relationships between those ideas. And as we've said, if you've got, you know, a whole big paragraph of text in a textbook, and it can be a bit overwhelming and daunting to look at, instead, breaking down those concepts into something that's more manageable is a lot more effective. And, you know, we don't remember whole paragraphs of text, but we do remember keywords and phrases. We remember ideas, colors, symbols, and this is all about what Inspiration is about, getting down those visual cues alongside those keywords, phrases, textual cues as well. And this makes it a lot easier, moving on to the next point, to retain that information. So hopefully with our users, they're not just creating the diagram and never coming back to it. But even that in itself, just creating the diagram is really beneficial for helping remember the information. Kind of like what Helena was talking about, kind of that passive studying versus if you're actually, you know, really getting into the meat of it and doing it yourself and retaining that information through creating a diagram like this can be really beneficial. And then note-taking and writing as well. So our visual views are diagrams, fully synchronized with a nice structured outline. Again, I'll show you this in just a moment. So it can be great for note-taking and writing as well. So within Inspiration, you can transfer your diagrams and outlines out into Word documents, PowerPoints, PDFs, graphics files, all sorts of stuff. So lots of our users do that. However, we did get asked for, what about if we want to do it in reverse? I've got the Word document, I've got the PowerPoint, and I want to be able to make an inspiration diagram out of it because this is my preferred way of thinking and learning, and I want to see it visually, see the big picture, and be able to work with it in Inspiration. So this is where we created Inspiration Maps Generator. So this is an add-on tool to Inspiration. It's completely free to use, and it's available to use by anyone. So whether that's a user or someone supporting a user of Inspiration, they can get access to this. We have an online version as well as an offline downloadable version, and this is what it looks like, and I'll jump into it in a second, but you can see it's a very simple to use tool. You open your file, so we support Word documents, we support PowerPoint and Excel as well. You choose whether you want your map to have links or not, and you pick a name and you generate your diagram. As Helena touched on, she said about us potentially having some new things to show. I'm not going to show you it today because we're not quite ready with it, and it's not quite relevant to this kind of scenario that we're showing you with a student going from their notes into an inspiration diagram. But we are working on additional formats that Inspiration Maps Generator can support, and our next launch will include support for markup and markdown language. Now, if you're not quite sure what these are, I wasn't quite sure either, but for example, tools like ChatGPT can export out in markup language, so you'd be able to then open that up within Inspiration. So AI is not being included into Inspiration in any way, but within this additional tool, a user can choose to import markup or markdown language documents and then create an inspiration file out of this. So this is not quite launched yet, not quite ready, but this is our first announcement. As there's so many of you on here, I wanted to share it with a few people. And if this is of interest to you, I've got my email address at the end of this. So pop me a message and let us know you want to use it, and we'll get you a copy as soon as it's ready. So really, why are we converting these notes from Glean into inspiration files? Like I said, this is really that scenario of taking it from that lecture all the way through to a finished project potentially. So it's that inspiration file is an optimal format for any non-linear visual thinkers. So anyone who wants to process, organize, analyze their information in this spatial and creative way. And as I said, it helps the user to be able to visualize that big picture. And how those key concepts can connect to one another so that they can get a better understanding, retain that information better, and be able to move it on to another project. They might be working towards a writing project, a presentation, so on. And it can help provide a template, as just kind of mentioned, to kickstart that research or writing process. And it allows users to navigate between the big picture view and dive into the detail. And this is what I was talking about the visual view versus the outline view. And I'll jump into Inspiration now so you can see this in action. I might pop back to this at the end just so you can see all of this after seeing what I'm talking about with the demo. Fab. So let's jump into our demonstration. So this is my Inspiration Maps Generator that I've got open here. And I've also got open the file that we have taken out of Glean, and we've created a Word document for it. And you can see all of the stuff that Helena added into her notes is all here ready to go into Inspiration. So if you think of a mind map, you've got that central idea, and then you've got the hierarchy of ideas coming off of it. This is really how Inspiration Maps Generator is reading these documents. So the fantastic thing about Glean is that it exports out using style headings. So if you're not familiar with style headings, up here, you can see our different style headings we can apply. And this means that we get a nice navigation pane as well on the side here, where we can see our headings. So you'll see in this section, that's our main heading. This sort of text we've got as a heading 3, and this is our normal text as well. So you can imagine how Inspiration Maps Generator is going to read this hierarchy. I'll close this for now and then open it within Inspiration. So I can open my file. As I said, you can choose whether the map has links or not, whether your ideas are linked up, or if you're not quite sure, you don't want it to be yet, they can be floating symbols, and then you can connect it all up afterwards. And let's put in a title, generate file. It will ask me where I want this saved and let me know, confirm that it's saved. So then I can open this up here. So this is my inspiration file that's created out of those notes. Cool. So you'll see in the center, we've got that main heading, and then all of those that were, I think the style heading was heading 3, are all shown here as symbols coming off of that main event in the middle. They go from a clockwise 1 o'clock and then all the way around so that they're still in that order that you've brought them in. And then in our notes for each symbol, so every symbol can include a note, and this can have lots of extra additional information that you might want to add. But obviously in this instance, it's including our slides that we put in the images, as well as those additional notes that were added underneath each of those main headings. So as I mentioned about the synchronizing of the visual view with our outline view, just to show you how this would look in our outline view. So up here, you'll see I've got my outline button. Let's zoom in a little bit. You can see the structure of my outline. I'm just going to do it so that all of those notes are open so you can see it in all its glory. And so, as I say, these views are completely synchronized. You can jump from one to the other. Anything I do in one view reflects in the other. And of course, there are benefits that the user might like to go in one for one thing, one for another. And as we said in that previous slide, it's really about being able to go from, seeing the big picture, maybe here, seeing that visual format, to maybe jumping into some detail here and getting into a bit more of the nitty gritty and working towards that written project. So you can open and close these different sections here, much like you can within that the main diagram view. So here I'm going to start in diagram view, as this is obviously that kind of main visual view, and then I'll show you a bit more of the functionality of outline view as well. So it's looking pretty bland at the moment, it's not quite up to our standards of what we like to do in terms of a visual diagram. So let's add those visual elements that are really going to help with that memory retention. So we have a few different tools that you might want to use depending on how large your diagram actually is. You might want to use the arrange tool. So up here you can see I've got some options of how to arrange my diagram. If I go to more, then you can see we've got a preview here of how it might look, and there's lots of different options. So I could do a tree to the right, for example, left, all of these different things. So you might be able to snap your diagram into a nice tree diagram, for example, if that's relevant to what you're doing. I'm just going to Control Z to undo that for now. But you can see you've got some options there to very quickly arrange your diagram. So if this is quite a large diagram, then it can be useful to see it in a different format and to be able to see it in a split tree or in a top-down tree, for example. One of the more recent features that we've added into Inspiration 11 is our themes feature down the bottom here. So we've got quite a few different themes available for the user to be able to apply to their diagram. Previously, you would have had to go to each symbol or, select a few symbols, and then you can change the color for those individual symbols. Now you can open themes and slap some color onto there. So this is more than just making it look appealing. This is really about also adding that visual element that we know is really important to our non-linear thinkers and important to those who need better help retaining this information and categorizing information. So color coding can be a really effective way of categorizing information, and you'll see very quickly I've added that color coding. It also helps people like me who procrastinate a lot by taking a lot of time making it look pretty rather than getting on with actually the nitty-gritty of what you need to be doing. So very quickly we've added on some color. If I right click here, I can also change the background color. Lots of users obviously don't like to look at that white screen with black text on. It can cause visual stress. So there we go. We've very quickly added these visual elements that can be helpful. Another one of our visual elements that we can add is some symbols or images. So you can bring in your own images, and there might be ones that you want to just drag and drop in, or you can go up to edit and insert graphic and go to a certain file that you want to add in there. Or Inspiration has a symbols palette here, and now this is full with tons of different symbols, and they're all broken down into different categories. So really can go through there, find the ones that are relevant to you and add them in. You can either select a symbol and then click one of these, or you can drag and drop them in, for example, as we can do here. So again, adding in those visual cues so that when a user is thinking about what was in this mind map, they can remember that, oh yeah, in the top left corner, I had that light bulb, or oh, in the green section, this was how, you know, you get the idea. So cool, we've added some of those visual elements. Now, again, as we've said, this scenario might be that you're working towards a written project or you're adding more research here, and therefore we want to be able to add more content. So we might want to use our popular rapid fire tool. So if I can select a symbol, and up here you'll see my lightning bolt rapid fire. Now I can choose to do this with or without links. Let's do it with links for now. So this might be, you might not be sure where you want your ideas to go yet. Like I've said before, you might just want to get them down onto the screen and link them up afterwards, or you might want to connect them from a certain symbol. So for this one, I am going to do it from here. My spelling is going to be atrocious whilst I'm trying to talk and type. Assistive technology. Let's do that for now. So very quickly, you can see, so what I did there was type an idea, click enter, type an idea, click enter. And we're not worrying about where they're going or anything like that. We're just getting those ideas down onto the screen nice and quickly. And I can just press escape to take that off. You can see we've got a spell checker within Inspiration, so that can be really useful. We do also have a word guide up here, so that can be great for if a user wants to look up particular words, they want to find synonyms, if there's something, a word that they're using over and over again or anything like that, that can be really useful. So this is all within our diagram view. So you'll see this is a very flexible environment where you can place things exactly where it makes sense to you. That's all what it's about, and move things around. And you'll see as well that color coding that I'd applied has continued to be applied to any ideas that I've then added on. So that can be really beneficial. You might start to see some other relationships that you wanted to add in, and you start to see connections between different ideas. So we can use our little arrows here to start linking up various ideas, and you'll see we've got a text box that's come up here as well. So I can type a linking phrase that might be useful to show the relationships between those ideas, or I can right click here and you can see we've got a whole bank of linking phrases that are common linking phrases that might be useful. Let's just use that one for now. And we've got that there. So you can see how these relationships can start to be built up. And if we've got very complex concepts that we're working with, you might want to add lots of different linking phrases in. And this is where the flexibility of Inspiration is really beneficial. Fabulous. So again, we can continue to add more to this. We might want to add some more research. So I might want to add hyperlinks. So I can either select certain text and I can go up to hyperlink here. And you can see I can add hyperlink to other web pages, files, or other Inspiration documents even. And you can type the URL there or copy and paste it. Or another way to be able to do this is also to use our citation collection tool. So every symbol can have a list of citations attached to it, or resources, whatever, really up to the user what they want to use it for. So if I go up here, I've got this citation tool, as you'll see. So here you can copy and paste in a reference if you like, or you might just want to say video to watch, or website to review, whatever it might be. This might be a whole list of PDFs, books, whatever it might be that the user needs to look at. And again, you can see we've got the hyperlink button there, so I can add in a web address. .com, add that in, and you'll see that's now an active hyperlink, so I can click that there. And again, this is a nice easy way to be able to collect all of our information into one place and have it all there. And this is a toggle open and close as well, so we can collect citations there, much like we can collect notes as well. So again, every symbol can have notes attached to it with up to 8 A4 pages of text and an image in it as well. So we might want to add additional information. I should pick shorter words to type, really. Additional information into each of our notes as well, and we can choose to open or close them it's really up to the user what they want to see at the time. And, you know, you can zoom in on a certain topic, you can open and close sections, as we've done with this, with the notes. So you can really focus in on what you want to work on in that moment. You know, you might want to close all of these down and, you know, maybe do a revision tactic and close it all down, try and remember it and do some reciting of information, then open it back up again and see what you got right, that sort of thing. So there's tons of different uses and people that this can apply to. Now let's just jump again to the outline view just to show you some of the functionality there. Hopefully you've seen that Inspiration is quite hopefully an easy to use or kind of one that's easy to get going with tool, as all of the kind of functionality that you're going to need is up here to create a nice diagram with those visual cues and those keywords and phrases, as I've said. So again, let's jump to outline view. We can do lots of formatting here as well. So, you know, this is not necessarily not a visual view. We can totally add those visual elements there as well. So if I go here, I can decide, you can change every level's font, the size, etc. We can add in a background color, much like we did before. You might choose to have the main topic as a certain color and size, and do any sort of formatting that you want to do here nice and quickly. But we've also got this toggle on off button here, which allows us to show symbols. So if we've applied that color coding over in our diagram view, then it can be really useful to show the symbols, as you can see here, and show those colors. And they kind of act like color coded bullet points so that we can categorize information, much the same here as well. So you'll see that anything that I did in that diagram view has now been taken over here. So you can see those extra ones that I added with the rapid fire tool, they've been brought over as well. And if I go right to the bottom, you'll see that anything that I added in as a citation, right down there, is now a alphabetically organized bibliography as well. So if you did want to add proper references, then that can be really useful and you can bring them over here. So let's just get back up to the top. Got lots of information here, which of course, you know, we can open and close particular sections. Let's focus in on one for now. Let's focus in on this top one. We can close these all down and really just work on one and then be able to see that bigger picture using these visual cues that we've kind of added there as well. And you'll see I've got, you know, even my little light bulb's been taken over there. So within this view, hopefully, again, something quite simplistic to start working with. You can drag and drop information, your different points. You can move them up and down the hierarchy as you see fit. You might decide that this one needs to come under a certain section, and you can see this red dot where I can drag and drop it. So hopefully quite intuitive for the user. And, you know, we can see things in that visual diagram, but you might come over here and realize things need to be rearranged a little bit. And that's the great thing about Inspiration. So we can start moving things around. And we can also start adding in more information. Of course, these notes that we've added, we can add more and keep adding into these as much as we like. Similarly, we can add those hyperlinks. Let's just put Google. So that's now an active hyperlink there that I can use. And again, adding in all of that information into one place can be really useful. So, you know, at the end of your project, you're not scrabbling around for references or hyperlinks at the end. So you'll see much of these tools are quite similar at the top. You can decide to add topics, to add subtopics as you see fit. Now, a popular thing to do from here is to transfer out to Word. So I will just show you how that works with Inspiration. You can decide to include the diagram at the top. So if that really works as a visual cue for the user that they want to keep at the top of their Word document, then you can do that. And then you can decide whether you have prefixes, if you want indentation, notes, all of it, you can decide what you take over. Obviously, if you want a real finished project, a real finished essay, then you will choose to forego taking some of these over, and you can click OK. If I select transfer to clipboard and then click OK, that essentially acts as a copy button, and then I can paste it into Google Docs or OneNote or any of those sorts of tools. For now, let's just take it over to Word. Oh, I need to save it first. Take it over to Word so that you can see how it transfers out. So you can imagine I've done all of this work here to kind of add to my diagram, and then again I can take it over to Word, similar to what we had from Glean as well. Let's just go back to diagram quickly. One scenario as well is that you might have gone to this lecture, and then a later task might be that you're tasked with creating a presentation on this particular topic. So you might have done lots of work here, started adding in more information, and then later on you might be tasked with doing a presentation. So you can use all of this work you've already done and use Inspiration's presentation manager. So up here you'll see we've got a presentation button. We can select a particular theme that we want it to go with, and Inspiration will create presentation slides for me out of my diagram. Potentially needs a little bit of tidying up in some areas, but you can see how it gets easily taken over. And anything that I had over there as images are now here as screenshots that I can drag and drop in and start using as visual cues myself, as well as elements of my map as well, which, you know, if I was creating them as visual cues for me and now I've got to present, this is really useful to have as a visual cue now in my presentation slides as I'm presenting to the audience. Fab. So I think that's pretty much everything that I wanted to show on Inspiration. So let me just jump back to this slide just to show you, well, hopefully you've got the idea of why you would convert these Glean notes into Inspiration and be able to see that big picture along with that outline view and start working towards a further project. And it can really break down that chunky Word document into something that's a lot easier to digest and add those visual cues to as well that can help with memory retention. But just to go to this slide too, to say that if you would like a free license for assessment, demonstration, training purposes, we can offer that to you. We can offer free training, and this QR code will go to what we've called our assessor toolkit. It's really just a collection of content that can be really useful for anyone working in a similar role who would like to look at. We've got lots of quick demos on there. We've got case studies. We have a link to a free trial if users want a 30-day free trial of Inspiration, they can give it a go, as well as a link there for you to request a free license of Inspiration yourself. I've got my email there as well. Pop me an email with any of this, I can send it to you as well. Cool. I'm going to stop sharing. I can see that the chat's grown.